The following is a production of cprundown.com. The views and opinions expressed by the host of this podcast are those of the individual and not of any affiliated companies. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rundown on Fun, a weekly podcast covering the Cedar Fair Entertainment Company, the amusement industry, and the business of fun. Here are your hosts, Karsten Anderson, Evan Schultz, and Kyle Huth.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Rundown on Fun, a weekly podcast where we cover Cedar Fair, Cedar Point, and everything to do with fun. And this week is a very, very special episode because we are joined by Adam Sandy of Zamperla.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome. Yes, very welcome.
Yeah, we're
our special crazy guest that we've been teasing for a few weeks.
Yes, we actually
happy to be here, guys. Thanks so much.
Yes, no, thank you.
Yeah, so we're super excited to have him. So this is not going to be a normal episode where we talk about news and all that stuff. It's pretty much just going to be us firing off questions to him, and we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah. I think we wanted to start out with, for those who don't know, can you tell us about Zamperla and also like what your role is within the company?
Sure. So Zamperla, I think, is pretty unique in our industry. You know, there's a lot of companies like B&M Vekoma that are for the most part exclusively coaster focused. There are others like Whitewater that really focus on water slides, water rides. We have, I would say, the largest portfolio in the attractions industry. So, you know, if you look at what we do, we've got, you know, small kiddie rides. Those were historically our bread and butter. And then just over the years, we've grown. So now we've got, you know, major thrill rides, we have water rides, we have coasters, and we've got tower rides, and even kind of your just standard flat rides too. So really everything that you could think of to get a new park, we can make and design and also theme really well. So I think that's one interesting aspect of the company. The other one is just the longevity. You know, the company's been around almost 55 years now, and we're one of the longest running ride manufacturers in the industry. And the family is just super proud that it's always been family owned. You know, it's third generation ownership now, or people running the company, I should say. That's Antonio and Alessandro. Those are Alberto's sons, and so Alessandro runs the operation side, Antonio runs the manufacturing side. But it's pretty amazing that a company's been around 3 generations now, running and growing like that we have.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I didn't honestly, I didn't even know that it was family owned. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think for us, I really enjoy it because, you know, I've worked with some ride manufacturers owned by big banks, and I've worked with some owned by family members. And, you know, it certainly is a lot more fun when the people whose name is on the door are the ones making the decision. And it's a really great work environment because of that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask exactly that, and you kind of beat me to it. That must really just seem like a closeness amongst everybody, and maybe more of a pride in what you guys are putting out there.
100%. I was just to say, like, I think part of that is the family-owned part. Part of that's honestly the Italian part. They're just as people to work with. You know, I've worked with a lot of different ride manufacturers from a lot of different countries, and it has been some of the most fun and friendly people. I've been here since January of 21, and so It's just been a really great group of people to work with.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I was gonna say real quick, is it with like having like other parks and things like that, do they look for like a family owned like business like Zamperla, or is it, you know what I mean? Like, are they more looking for like you said, like big bank companies or something like that?
Honestly, I think our customers don't look either way, but what it allows us to do is kind of an attitude. You know, I think we're allowed a little bit of a swagger and approach that maybe a button down corporate group doesn't have. And certainly I think our team has a little bit of Italian flair too. It's kind of fun. Okay. You know, if you come to our booth during Napa, we got wine and espresso. So, you know, it's a different way to do things, but it's been a really great kind of no holds barred attitude when it comes to just dominating or trying to dominate different segments of the industry that I think is a little bit different than if we were owned by like VCs or some other capital group.
Yeah, that's cool.
For sure.
Nice.
It might kind of be more like kind of just like the amusement parks. You mentioned that swagger. You know, we have the corporate Cedar Fairs, Six Flags, and then we also have the Knoebels, you know.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where things are a little more loose and different.
Yeah, for sure.
That way.
but then when it doesn't need to be loose, you've got, like you said, you've got your family, and you've got that solid background and stuff, which is really good. So
yeah, and I think a big part of it too is just, when the guy running the company or guys running the company, or when their name's on the door, I think people take it a little differently. There's a different sense of responsibility. I think there's a little bit of understandable weight, third generation ownership, and there's just a drive there to be the best and to really kind of take it the next level, just because they're the ones who have now, 3 generations of families owning it, and they want to, not have anything bad happen. They want to take it to the next level. So it's a really fun place to be. And certainly I think for me, it's been a really good environment for a company that's looking to break new ground.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you do then, on a daily basis more than, are you the one that's making the coasters, or are you selling the coasters? Or
So I'm selling the coasters. So my official title is Roller Coaster Sales and Marketing Director, and we do selling here a little differently than I did before. So I came from a small company. I was with Ride Entertainment, and it was really just me or myself or Mark, just really kind of selling one-on-one. It was us. And what we do here is a lot of team selling. So on the one side, I work very closely with our sales managers. We have sales team members worldwide. So either they're based in Italy and serve a certain part of the world, or they actually live in that area. So we have offices in Dubai, in China, in the US, and Philippines. So we actually, our service departments we're unique because we're open 24/7, basically.
Yeah.
A lot of ride manufacturers, are based in Europe and only open in Europe. We kind of are open worldwide. So that's a difference for us. But in addition, I work closely with all of our sales managers, just because coasters, I've sold a lot of them in my career. And really the focus there is always a little bit different than a flat ride, because kind of if you're selling a drum around or a power surge or a tower ride, they're certainly very different rides, but a lot of the metrics are the same. When it comes to coasters, they're our own beast. So I've got this great sales team that has these wonderful, deep relationships and knows rides really well. And I do a lot of team selling with them on the coaster part. And then I also work closely with our roller coaster division. So we've got about 25 engineers solely dedicated to coasters. The company's really invested in that in the last 5 years. And so I work with them too as we come up with new concepts, new ideas, and work to kind of, really present, I think, our product better to the client. And that's really been my role. Is the company heavily invested in our coaster division starting about 2016. And so we were getting some bigger and better projects, but we were having, I think, a bit of a hard time telling clients why we were better, why we were different, why we're the company not selling you the Volare anymore, So, so we had a great engineering team, but they weren't really able to communicate that well. So that's where I stepped in and sort of bridged between the engineering and sales, and I get to work with everybody and a worldwide client base. So it's been really a great position for me.
That's awesome. How big is Zamperla? Like, how many employees do you guys have? Since you said you're worldwide.
Yeah, we're about 450 people total.
Okay.
Wow. I was going to say, so you said like you're in the Philippines, and you mentioned a couple other countries that I don't necessarily think of as amusement park countries. What's the approach for having an office in the Philippines rather than just China, or,
So we have two different types of, I should say 3. So our headquarters is in Italy, and that's where we've got, the main headquarters, as well as the roller coaster department and a few other places where we fabricate there. And then we have some branches like in the US and in China that are sales and service. And then we have other ones like in the Philippines where we actually do fabrication. So we make kind of small kiddie rides there. Just because we were finding, we still make a lot of stuff in Italy, but there were some things where it just made sense from a financial standpoint to make it in the Philippines. We could get Italian quality because we have Italian team QCing everything and work hand in hand with the Filipino team. But from a cost basis, it allows us just to keep our costs down a little bit by doing it there. So on some projects, like, you wouldn't know it all says Zamperla, it's all made by the same team and engineered in Italy by that team. But we'll do some things in the Philippines, some things in Italy, and those two kind of products will come together on site.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense.
That's way more than I thought. That's awesome. That's cool. Wow.
All right. So our next question that we kind of have scripted for you was, do you have a favorite ride made by Zamperla that's currently operating anywhere?
I mean, I would say on the kind of flat ride side, I say two recent favorites, hard to choose. I think Nebulous is an awesome ride. It's just a lot of fun to watch, and it's a lot of fun to ride, and it's 42 inches to ride. And as I've kind of told other podcasts and many, many customers, like, I'm a big proponent of 42-inch attractions. I have my youngest daughter is, as I say, stubbornly short. So with so many parks having rides that are 48, I've had a lot of parks I go to where I'm like, well, you can ride kiddie rides, but you can't get on anything big, and there's this hole in the middle. And we've really focused on hitting that what we call broad appeal 42-inch, ride that really hits a lot of different demographics. So I think both from a kind of viewer standpoint, rider standpoint, Nebulous is great. And I also got to ride the big waves when we were prototyping it. And that was just a very different experience and a very cool ride. And again, kind of wide rider demo on that. Yeah. And so like, those are the two things I think that we've done recently that I'm just like, those are both home runs, fun rides. And on the sales side, like, we introduced Nebulous 2019. I think we've sold over 30. It's one of our fastest selling attractions. It's just done amazing. Yeah. And we're starting to get some traction with big waves too now. So it's on both of those, I think you'll see more and more out in the marketplace.
That's awesome. I've been in the presence of a Nebulous at Hershey last year, but I can attest to the visual of it, like you said, but we couldn't get near the ride because it probably, we were there on a very not busy day, but it had like a solid like hour wait because it really drew people in because it's a cool ride. It's just a lot weird looking. It's awesome looking. Yeah.
As I say, a lot of stuff is going on with it, and you're just like, whoa, what? You know? Yeah.
And the lighting package that Hershey, I don't know if you guys provided that or Hershey did it or whatever. We did. It's just like it's awesome.
It's pretty awesome.
LEDs, LEDs, man. I love LEDs. You can make something look like meh to like amazing, and like especially at night. Oh man,
yeah. And it uses the fraction of the energy it used to, even compared to 10 years ago. So from an owner standpoint, it's great.
Yeah.
So plop a Nebulous down. You don't even need park lights. You don't need street ride to light up the hole.
And anymore, as a theme park fan who doesn't need to ride a ride a million times, I also really appreciate like the interactive element of just watching everything almost more than the ride experience itself. So that's something that I'm really glad is starting to develop more is, okay, well, these rides are fun, but we need to make them look really cool too, because I think that's just awesome.
Yeah. And honestly, you're kind of right on target there for what we're doing a lot of our design work now, because, we can make a great ride, but what we found is that I think Hershey Park's a great example. They put the Nebulous in, and we heard back from them, and we've heard this from many customers, because it's so engaging for guests off ride and on ride. They put a few F&B, like food and beverage places around it. All of a sudden, that's one of the busiest areas in the park. And before, it was one we just kind of walked through. It's like, we might ride the Vekoma Boomerang, we may not. Now they redid the trains on the Vekoma. It's great. They've got the Nebulous there. And people are sitting, watching, or standing, watching the ride for multiple cycles now. They're grabbing a drink, they're getting some food. So that's become an area where people spend time and money in Hershey Park. So it really transformed it. And that's what we're trying to think of. And I think Big Wave's another great example, where you have this tower ride that also has like a waterfall almost. It's a splash that's larger than a shoot-to-shoot. So the people stop staring with that one. I forget the numbers, but we got something like 55 or 100,000 views on TikTok when people were basically they were testing the ride. So it wasn't open. No one was riding it. They were commissioning at night in Saudi because you have to there because it was so hot in the summertime. And what happened, basically, it was in this kind of open plaza area. And they had so many guests running to the ride to get splashed and watch it. They actually fenced it off, sold ponchos, and charged admission to get in and get splashed. So I think when we're coming up with unique rides like that, we're definitely on the right path for creating, the next generation of attractions that aren't just passive experiences.
Yeah, that's super cool.
That is really cool.
All right, so next up, we're gonna kind of switch gears here and talk about the new for 2023 Wild Mouse at Cedar Point. And we were just wondering, were there any challenges that you or your team came across while installing that ride? We saw today, April 5th, that it made its first test run, which is a
Yes.
great achievement.
Yes.
And congratulations
We
to you
were
and your
very
team.
happy about
Yeah.
that.
I was like,
Good
yeah,
timing for the show too.
Yeah, no, it was nice. I did that just for you guys. So
Yeah, thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. We appreciate it. I know you pulled some strings for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So honestly, kind of our marching orders on that were, they had the vision of the boardwalk. So certainly had to kind of have that throwback Wild Mouse coaster concept. That was the overall theme. But, with Cedar Point, it needs to be something for them. So we couldn't just give them our standard, twister coaster concept that we've done so many times. So they said, we love your ride, we love your ride system, super simple, great capacity, but we want to have it unique for the park. And so we created this new Twister freeform layout, and that actually has ended up for us being kind of a new standard layout now for a compact Twister coaster. So we have kind of our traditional with the switchbacks, and we have this one as an alternative. But, it really served because they were looking for, anytime we work with Cedar Point and they talk about coasters, it's always going to be, what can you do for us that's different or special, whatever. And so that was definitely it. It's like, we want to have the old school Wild Mouse aesthetic and feel, but it's got to be unique to Cedar Point. And obviously we had a certain parameter in terms of scale and size, so they wanted to have more of that Wild Mouse feel. So that's why it has the footprint and height it does, so it really fits that area and fits the feel of the area too.
Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely, like, I love the colors. I don't know if you guys if you guys picked the colors or if Cedar Point picked the colors, but like just seeing it when we were able to go in February to Winter Chill Out, like we finally saw it like actually in person, and the colors just pop on that midway. Like,
yeah,
oh
it
my
really
goodness.
does.
That is all of them, and they have a really good team. And the past couple of years, they've created I think it's called their XDS team, like experiential design team. And so they really think about, and I think that's what's impressed us for this project and for other ones like Aeronautica too, is it's not just kind of plopping down a ride somewhere and putting some paint on it. It's okay, we're adding a ride, we're adding theming, we're adding concept, we're adding story, and we're adding a whole feel to the area. And so that's what has been really exciting for us to have them as a partner with all these projects, is that's their approach. It's kind of the same thing that we're doing with the rides and creating that experience. They're saying, how do we get our guests to be happier, spend more time here, spend more money, really in a lot of ways make it a third place for them. I don't know if you guys know the third place concept. It's kind of you have work and you have home and somewhere else, whether it's a coffee shop or something. But to me, that's what Cedar Fair has done at a lot of their parks now, is said, we're going to create this space that is special and you want to spend time at. And if you want to go ride coasters all day, awesome. If you want to come in, so you got a season pass and you just want to grab a beer, hang out in the ambiance, that's cool too. And I think that's a really unique approach that, they maybe have taken a little bit from Disney. I think Disneyland in California has always had a strong local market. But I think Cedar Fair has really done a nice job of redefining what that means and what going to an amusement park means and what having a season pass means, because they've taken a very different approach to the business.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've talked at length. I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, Aeronautica Landing and what that's looking to be, and what a great job. Now there's no Zamperla rides in it, but Jungle Expedition at King's Dominion, and this focus that we've talked a lot about Cedar Fair having on themed lands, that I know even just us being the dorks that we are, we've really noted how much we love that stuff, and instead of just plopping a coaster down, it really changes the experience at a park.
Yeah, to me, when you toss a ride or even a coaster, like if you toss it over a parking lot, great, people will be happy as the new coaster, but it doesn't have, a long tail in terms of marketability or in terms of ridership or popularity. When you create something custom, when you create it for that space and you create an environment around it, to me, that's really building a great guest experience, and that's a great business model too, because you're creating something that people want to come back to. So it's you get in the first couple of years for the ride, but then it becomes part of the routine, part of their life. And I think you look at parks like Kings Island, where it's amazing. Cincinnati's not a gigantic market; it's I'd say medium at best. But they've created this whole loyalty in the whole Cincinnati and really mid-Ohio market, where people come and spend time there. I know so many people who, if they have the season pass, they'll bring their family on a summer evening or just, like a Saturday morning. They're not going to spend full ticket price whole day. They're coming multiple times throughout the year to just spend family time together. And to me, that's, if you're looking at long-term success, that's a huge win.
Yeah, for sure.
And you could continue the story, 5 years from now, King's Dominion might build a coaster that goes along with Jungle X, or Carowinds might build a coaster that goes along with Aeronautica Landing. And, like you said, they could just keep on marketing that over and over.
I was going to say, like, with the theme, we've got Disney and we've got Universal and things like that. But like what Cedar Fair seems to be doing now is like you've got themed actual lands or themed coasters or themed rides or something like that, to where, you've got theme to where you're like ramping up your theme in specific areas, but you're not considered, a theme park. But I love that I could just literally just plop myself like down, at Carowinds, or, I'm sure, on the boardwalk, and just be immersed with everything. Just, the lights.
And maybe not have it feel like the same park that you were just in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it makes me want to spend more,
And I would say I got to tour Aeronautica about a month ago now. It was I think almost all the rides were in. They were still doing a lot of concrete work and other work, but it is amazing. You go through this portal and they have a huge open area where you can grab a beer. They've got a great F&B facility. They got, they have, fortunately for us, some great rides from us, but it changes the feel when you go in that area, and you can tell people are going to spend time and money there. It's not just, let's throw a few rides in, it's let's create an experience. And I think that sort of twist on the traditional approach we've seen in the last 20 years of theme parks is really what's going to lead to long-term success. And I know publicly traded companies always have this challenge, this tension, where on the one hand you want to get short-term returns because you basically have to make people happy every quarter for your investors. But the flip side is, if you do that too much, you lose that long-term vision, because you could get some really good short-term gains, but you don't do well in the stock market. On the flip side, like Cedar Fair has done a really nice job of balancing really strong quarter after quarter returns with creating, I think, really good, in some areas, lifetime guests, people that are multi-generational, that go there as kids, then take their kids when they're older. And, if you look at Knott's, you look at Cedar Point, you look at Kings Island, they're creating these experiences that I think are going to last them a long time and allow them to have that long-term financial success.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so kind of staying on that same topic. So obviously we know about Wild Mouse, and we just kind of talked about Aeronautica Landing. Is there anything else within Cedar Fair right now that you're able to tell us about, or anything that you're working on?
So, yeah, I'd say for other stuff this year, I think we've got an Endeavor 24 and it's a teacup, but I think themed to barrels, going to Kings Island. And those are, I think, I haven't seen the full theming overlay, but certainly I know on the barrels, definitely kind of a throwback on traditional Kings Island experience. So, we've been very fortunate to have a lot of great projects with the company, and they've just been really great to work with for us. And again, I think it's helped on our side because we have this wide portfolio now. We've got everything from small kiddie rides up to coasters. They found us to be a good partner because we can handle the theming that they're requesting. Like the theming at Aeronautica, when you guys see the rides in person, they look amazing. I mean, Cedar Fair came up with the design concepts, but then what happens is our artistic team, we have a whole artistic department. We've got like 6-7 artists. So we take what they're looking for at Cedar Fair, we interpret it and say, okay, this is how we can make it work on those rides. And we say, well, we can do that, but we could save you a lot of money if we use this existing mold and do it this way. And it's kind of a back and forth. So we really work hand in hand with their artistic department, with their XDS team and our artistic department, to make rides that look really good, but really don't break the bank when it comes to new attractions.
That's super cool. I didn't realize that you guys did a lot of that theming in-house.
Yeah, it's challenging because we get so many times a company that will want us to do something crazy and awesome and cool looking on top of an existing ride, and we're like, guys, we can do that, but we need to change some things, because we don't want to re-engineer the ride every time we put it out. We don't have the same sort of engineered base on it, but make it look different so it creates their own experience. But yeah, we have a wonderful team. I think it's 6 or 7 artists that are in-house full-time in Italy, and they do a lot of interface and work directly with our clients to make sure that on the one hand it meets our engineering requirements, on the other hand it looks as good as the client wants it to.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
So I think we only have one more park-specific question, and then the rest are just kind of about Zamperla as a whole. But Karsten, you had a question about Wild Mouse, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of our fans have been asking with Wild Mouse, is there going to be any non-spinning cars? Some people want, like, I don't know, they don't want to spin on it. I didn't know if there was, because I don't think the park has really said. I think the park has just said it's been spinning, but I just wanted to, just feel to ask the question. So
They are all spinning, so that's okay. What was requested, and that's what we delivered. Yeah. So
okay.
If you don't love spinning coasters, unfortunately, this one is not for you. But at least at Cedar Point, you have a lot of other options, so it's not
right. I was going to say it's balanced, right? It's not like it's so like maybe you just figure out a perfect balance, and
to make sure you don't
won't
spin.
have a spinning one. So
yeah, if you even weight distribution, you're not going to spin crazy. If you've got two large guests on one side, two kids on the other, you probably will.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking how this summer we're going to be like, all right, how can we make this thing spin the absolute most? Carson, you and I specifically will be the ones doing that.
Oh yes.
I actually have a question more just after seeing the footage of it testing today. At what point in the ride does it actually start to spin? Because we've heard maybe that it's right off a lift, but looking at the video, it almost looked like maybe it didn't start till after that first drop. Maybe that was just that car that went, the weight distribution. What's the deal there?
That is something that I cannot share at this time, but will be revealed later.
Ooh, all right.
Understood.
Noted.
That's exciting.
All right. So a couple more Zamperla or coaster specific questions here, but when you and your company are approached by a park and you are designing a ride, what has more of an impact of the overall design? Is it space / budgeting constraints, or like an actually those are my two. Is it space and land or budgeting that yeah.
I approach it like this. So, and I think different people maybe do it different ways, but to me the critical thing is always ABC: audience, budget, capacity. Like, audiences, are you looking for 36 inches, 42 inches, or 48 inches to ride? Like, who is this targeted at? Budget, very obvious one: how much you want to spend and how much you want to spend on the installation. Capacity, how many people would you want to get through per hour? So if I can kind of check each of those three boxes and know what a client's looking for, then I'll guide them in a certain direction to what makes sense from our ride. Obviously, if they say I've got a tiny footprint, that limits things severely, but really it's more a higher level conversation than footprint, just because, coasters start on the low side, like million-ish, and go way up from there. So I kind of start with those three questions, to talk with the client to understand what their goals are. And then we'd say, okay, from our portfolio, we'd say this or this or this would be your best bets. You might also want to try this. It's not quite what you're looking for, but I think it could work because of these facets. But, that's really more the back and forth dialogue we have. It's not sort of me saying, hey, that you should buy this, or here's our whole portfolio, look at everything. It's we do at Zamperla, we do a lot of listening to our clients when we visit parks a lot too. I will say, like, not necessarily everyone is a amusement park super fan like I am, where they love going to parks and can ride all day. But, we do have people like on the North American team, like Ramon, myself, Ulysses, all of us, whether we go to parks and love them for the rides or not, all of us know like the business and how a park approaches things. So we really, both on the flat ride side and the coaster side, have a much more targeted conversation. Instead of saying, we've got 90 rides in the portfolio, here's everything, what do you like? It's, I hear you, I visited your park, I talked to your guests when I was at the park, and this is what we feel would be the best fit for what you're trying to achieve with your next investment.
Awesome.
Wow.
All right.
That's good.
So this one is kind of for you specifically. But do you have a project that for one reason or another was just your absolute favorite to work on?
I'd say of everything that, I'm lucky because we're working on several cool projects right now that you guys will hear more about this year. So I can't talk about those, but I can say for everything that has opened to date, Fire Chaser Express was a lot of fun for me. I worked on that at Dollywood. And so that was a lot of fun because I got to work with the Hershey creative team, the Dollywood team, and Fork, who's a master planning company, and got to be very involved with them as, I was kind of working with the Gerstlauer team on that. So that was a lot of fun. just for several aspects. They took out a ropes course and put the coaster there, kind of in the middle of all that. As a dad now, I've got kids who are 7 and 11, so I think I certainly look at things differently than I did 20 years ago. But even then, my kids were younger then. But I really love the fact that I think that was a 39-inch height requirement. So creating a very dynamic, fun, marketable coaster, but that was still 39 inches to ride, was pretty unique. And certainly Dollywood, which is very much a multi-generational property, their goal is to get kids, parents, grandparents, kind of everybody through the gate. It was a really fun, I literally stood at the exit the first day of the ride open. I just listened to all these families who had a really good time, and all these kids who, rode something more than just a kiddie coaster. Like that's a big coaster. It's got a 70-something foot lift.
I love it. Yeah, it's a good one.
And so it does a lot for that sort of energy profile. And to me, just as a dad, I love standing there and listening to all these kids like being so proud that they got out this big coaster. And to me, that's just something that's always stayed with me. It's like the people on the project were wonderful to work with, and I think the end result was a really good one too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my favorites there. Just it's like it's more of a guilty pleasure coaster than anything. It's just a ton.
I think it's a great coaster, and then the theming is just awesome as well.
Next level.
You're like, I'm gonna go fight a fire. Yeah.
Awesome. The little kid and all of us are so happy when we ride that.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
That, for some of those rides, that's why it works, right? It's because you're either a kid and love it, or you get to be a kid again for a few minutes and kind of remember what that was like.
Yeah, what little kid didn't dream about being a firefighter when they grew up?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's awesome.
And fireworks, come on.
Yeah.
All right. Man. And then I promise we only have a few more questions that we thought of. But so we've seen Thunderbolt at Luna Park and Rollin' Thunder at the park at OA. The Lightning coasters kind of roll out in the past couple years, and they look really fun. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
So, I think sort of what you can see there's, what the family has wanted to do with the roller coaster division, sort of in a nutshell. We opened Thunderbolt at Luna. It's from a business standpoint, and it was an amazing investment. It has made a ton of money, one of the most popular attractions there. But after it opened, we all said we can do better. It had some issues with the track. It's not as smooth as it should be. And so that was really the start of sort of this journey that I got to be a part of, where that opened in 2014, I think. And then we opened a few more coasters. And then what really started to change was we opened the Super Twister over in Abu Dhabi. And then shortly thereafter opened the Factory Coaster in China at Wuxi Sunac Land. And both of those were, I'd say from a size standpoint, much bigger than we'd done a lot of coasters in the past. The Super Twister is kind of a supercharged twister coaster with trains, much more on the scale of kind of what Mac had been doing at the time. And the Factory Coaster was not exactly, but I'd say in the same kind of wheelhouse as the dynamic SFX coasters or the Mummy rides from Premier. And so those were a big step up from us, and we had to learn a lot, and we really started to push the envelope with our design team. And what we've continued to do is really kind of take what I call our engineering to production pipeline and make sure that's good. Because, what I've learned is our engineering of the Thunderbolts was actually pretty good. But what was happening was that was not translating into the best track that actually got produced. So we've really tightened up that whole line and made sure that what we put in the computer and what we engineer is actually what is fabricated. And we're actually working on a new track that we're going to debut later this year on one of the Lightnings in China, where we're really excited because it features a lot less shrinkage. So when you weld something, you heat it a lot, and when it cools, you can have maybe some size anomalies or other things that don't work right with the precision you need on a coaster. And we found some different ways to build track now. And you'll actually see it when it's actually produced, that it looks different than our traditional track does, because we found that we can use this system. It's lighter, it takes less work, and we'll have better precision with it. So that's just one of the many things we've done to make a better product. But certainly overall, as a company, Zamperla is really invested in being a player in the coaster game. We really said at a certain point that either we're going to make some of the best coasters out there, or we don't really want to be a part of it, because there's sort of no point in being in the middle. That there's in the marketplace, there's no need for that. So for us, if you look at our company historically, we made kiddie rides, but then we've come to dominate the kiddie ride family ride market. We're the first modern company to make kiddie family rides that parents and kids could ride together. Then we sort of took over, or I'd say one of a few key players in the thrill ride market with rides like the Discovery and Giga Discovery. Mm-hmm. And now we're really going. Yeah, I think they're awesome. Yes. And they're just rides that really, I think, same thing we said at the exit, watch the guest reaction. I was at Fiesta, Texas recently just watching guests get off that. It's like everybody from thrill seekers to the mom who got coaxed on by her kids, everybody has really good time. Yeah. So, that's been a lot of fun. So, we're dominating that space. We're a key player there. And really that's the goal of coasters too, is we want to be a premier player. And I'm not saying we are right now, but I'm saying I think we've got the team and we've got the technology to do so. We've got some very stiff competition. We've got B&M. Vecoma's been on a tear lately. Intamin is always innovating. So certainly some really good players we're up against. But with the team we have, I really feel that we are in a place where we're going to be able to make some moves to directly compete with them. And more importantly, we've got the team. We have a gentleman named Alberto Ferri runs our roller coaster engineering department, and he has really been an expert in coaster design, and he's just someone who is teaching all these younger people we have also. So we've got some bigger coaster nerds, like myself. So like we have Elisa, who's a mathematician. We've got Federico, he's like 25 and helping design coaster layout. So we've got kids. I call them kids because I'm over 40 now. But kids who people have a passion growing up like I did for coasters, and I can't engineer for shit, so you don't want me designing a ride. But we've got these kids that have, they grew up wanting to do this, and they're doing their dream now. And how awesome is that? That they're the ones who are designing that next generation of our coasters. So I'm just thrilled to be here, kind of helping them and talk to them and interface with our clients on their behalf. But we have this awesome team that I'm very fortunate to be the face of, and it's a really exciting time for us because we think sort of the sky's the limit on what we can do as we create this next generation and kind of write our own story.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that actually segues perfectly into the last question that we had pre-wrote for you. But what sort of advice would you give to somebody who might be trying to get a job in the industry or kind of break through and get that first step in the right direction?
I mean, so if you want, everyone asks, what do you want? I want to be a roller coaster designer. How do you do that? The obvious basis is engineering. That's where you start. But also, the thing I always tell people who want to be on the engineering design side is go work at a park in maintenance, because so many times the engineers never really actually see the ride, find out what the ride was like after one annual teardown, and understand what it actually takes to take care of a coaster. So that's one piece of advice I always give anyone who wants to be an engineer in industry is work in maintenance for a season or two. You're going to learn so much and have so much practical knowledge that it's going to put you leaps and bounds ahead of where you would be otherwise, because they're going to teach you stuff in school you can't learn in the field and vice versa. You're going to learn things on coasters, and even if it's not your ride, you're going to say, man, I had to do annual teardown for that, and it was awful because I had to fish these wires through a 2-centimeter hole, and there's no room. And all those little things that help you make a better ride eventually. I'd say on the park side, definitely, look to who's hiring. Obviously, right now we're in an interesting cycle where you have groups like Disney's laying off a lot of people, Universal's hiring, and from what I hear, paying really good wages. So you certainly, if you're an ops, have to want to live, whether it's maybe not where you grew up, or even internationally, but sort of be willing to do that and just kind of be comfortable taking the leap. I'm going to go live in Saudi for a few years. I'm going to go live in Texas for a few years, if it's not where you're from, and do that. So I think you have to sort of want to be a nomad a little bit to kind of jump into our industry. But I will say it is tougher now than it was. I got in the industry in 2001 right out of college, and I think the really good thing is that we have all these college programs like you see in Florida, all these TEA groups around the country at different universities, but also practically speaking, there are just more people trying to get into the industry than there were when I was a kid. And certainly even 20 years before that, there were way more people. So it is harder than it used to be. And you definitely need to stand out somehow, whether it's your knowledge or your education base or even your practical experience. There's no one way to get in our industry. But I think that's the other part of it is it's not just like you're going to do 4 years or 5 years at school and automatically get in. There are a lot of different ways to get in. I mean, I was a big nerd. I loved amusement parks, but I realized I was not good at engineering or at math science. I was good enough, but not great. And obviously, there are only a handful of people in the world that get to design coasters. When you look at it compared to professional sports, it's much more exclusive to do what on coaster design than it is professional sports.
Yeah.
So, I was able to kind of worm my way in as being a history major and someone who knew a lot about rides. And the flip side of that, I did take a lot of opportunities where it was a lot of travel, weird hours, and all those things. But I was able to kind of find my place in the industry and wind up here where I've just been super happy to be at for over 2 years now. So I'd say definitely find the way that works best for you to get in the industry, but also be honest with yourself. If you're not great at math and science, there are a lot of other opportunities in this industry. I can't promise you you'll design coasters, but there are a lot of ways that you can be involved in this industry, be successful in this industry, and make some money in this industry too, because that is, to me, I think the other thing, like, yes, you have to have a passion for it, but also, there needs to be a financial incentive where you're working crazy hours or crazy travel or both. And those opportunities are there. And so I would definitely advise people to figure out what they think they might want to do and then figure out what are some paths just to get in the industry. And then I can go from there, because Universal's hiring like a crazy number of people right now, but with all their projects plus Texas, get your foot in the door, work there for a year or two. And then if, you want to springboard there from somewhere else, do that. That's great. But get some of that practical experience, even if it's just, designing one ride or engineering one area of a park. Like, that really helps to just get you to know people and get you as something else than just the guy at IAPA who's looking for a job. You can say, I did this for a few years. I'm looking for my next step.
That's really good.
I think that's definitely the best advice I've heard of any.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I've heard that question asked a lot, but that was a great answer. It even gave me something to kind of think about. Not that, because I'm in engineering, so they always ask, well, what made you want to do this? And I'm like, roller coasters. But I know that's a super niche thing to get into. So yeah, that was just cool to hear.
Yeah, and that's the nice with our industry. Like, once you get your foot in the door, you'll find all these other companies you didn't know about. Like these. I keep pointing about this companies that, like, no one had heard of Dynamic Attractions 15 years ago. They were doing all this work for Disney, but no one knew about them. Like, there's other companies like Celtic Engineering in Florida, great engineering company. Hardly anyone's heard of them. But they've done a lot of contract work for a lot of big players. So they're really out there. So if you kind of get your foot in the door and you go to IAPA as someone in the industry and get to know people, you just learn about a lot of things by word of mouth really quickly. And I think that's the fun thing about our company, or I shouldn't say our company, our industry is, on the one, it's really weird because we're global, but it's still a really small industry. So if you can get into the industry, you can meet a lot of people really quick. And if you're a hard worker, a good person, most people are willing to pass your name along to others to say, hey, I know this guy, or I worked with this guy. They're really good to work with, or she's really good to work with. I'd recommend picking them up, and that's how, honestly, I hear about a lot of people sort of getting their second job is because they just excel and they have a good attitude, and then they get picked up to do that second project. That may not be a long-term thing, because not everything in our industry is guaranteed to be a 20-year term. But if you get picked up for Universal project, John, for a few years, you're gonna have time to kind of land somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure, and puts a lot of things on your resume too.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he's right, Evan. I see the signs all over town of Universal hiring like crazy. So if you want to come bunk up with me, I'm sure you can do the job.
I say they've got that giant new park they're going to open up in 25, Epic Universe. So
absolutely,
yeah,
a lot of options.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
So that's kind of it.
You want Texas heat or Florida heat? It really depends what you want.
Right. Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah, I'm good with my Ohio roller coaster. It was 80 here today.
I don't think we asked. I think we asked Zamperla. What's your favorite coaster like out there?
Just your favorite coaster.
Yeah.
My favorite coaster
Doesn't have to be Zamperla.
Yeah.
I'd say, like, I really love Phoenix. I know that may be a very standard answer, but I do love Phoenix a lot. And at Cedar Point, I've always loved Maverick. That's just been, to me, a really solid layout, fun ride from start to finish.
Yeah.
So that's another one where I'm just like, I love the pacing of it. I like the experience. I like that it's different. And then another one would be Fury. I just think Fury is for like a kind of, if you're looking for airtime and speed, like I will, I may get some haters from this, but like to me, I'll take that over Millennium Force any day. I just think Fury is a great ride, and I love it.
Lucky for you, this is a Cedar Fair podcast. We won't kick you off.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Fury's a good one.
That's kind of it for the questions that we had pre-planned. I know I don't have anything else. If either of you two have questions.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in and just ask that favorite coaster thing. So
yeah,
that was.
Hopefully, you get to ride Cedar Point. The Wild Mouse here pretty soon. Hopefully, before opening day. At least you do.
I will be, if nothing else, I'll be up there for media day. So if you guys are there, we'll definitely hook up and do a ride together.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds good. Awesome.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, with that, we're gonna go ahead and end the show. Once again, we can't express how thankful we are for having you on the show this week, Adam. I know it was awesome. I'm sure our listeners are going to love it, but thank you. That's
Thanks
all
for having me,
have.
guys. Appreciate it.
Yes, thanks so much.
And hopefully we'll see you in the park.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. If you're ever down in the Orlando area, look me up. So we'll catch a ride together somewhere. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Rundown on Fun. We'll be back next week with all of our news. Take it away, Justin.
Thank you for listening to the Rundown on Fun. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things Cedar Fair. As always, be kind to your ride operators, and we will see you on the Midway. Good night.